Alright, so today we'll be talking about Ouija, the origin of evil. Alright, before we start the video, my sister wants to say hi to you guys.
Hi, I'm Addison, and I think subscribe to my brother. He has really good artwork, so yeah.
Thanks, Addie.
You're welcome.
So this film was directed by Mike Flanagan, and it came out in 2016. It was theatrically released, and Ouija, the origin of evil, is the story of a family dealing with the loss of their father. They work together performing fake seances for people that want to talk to a loved one that they have lost again. Upon buying a Ouija board to use as a part of their gimmick, it ends up giving them a much more realistic experience than they had thought. To start off, for anyone that might be confused, there was a movie called Just Ouija that was released 2 years before this film was, and to be honest, I've never seen it, but um, let's just say it didn't do too well in the eyes of the public. This film, however, everything that I've heard and everything that I can read for the most part has been positive, and I can see why. So, as I've already mentioned, Mike Flanagan directs this film, and if you're familiar with any of his work, he directed movies such as Hush, Oculus, and he also directed Doctor Sleep, which just came out recently. He has a great eye for horror, and in my opinion, he's definitely top five, if not top three, directors that are currently working right now in the horror genre. Most of the things that he releases, most of the things that he has his hands on, are success stories, and this is definitely one of them. So, one of my favorite things about this, and I think the main thing that divides this movie and the other film that came out a couple years prior. Also, by the way, apparently this is a sequel. These are both in the same universe and are both for the same series, so that's very interesting to me because I imagine they're very different. But I think the main thing that separates this, that makes this stand out, is the story. Just flat out, like the writing of this. This has a unique feel to it. There's so many movies in the past, and especially movies nowadays that I've talked about before on the channel, where it's like it's just a very basic story that you've heard a million different times, and the company, these production companies will just put a ton of money into like special effects and everything just to get people to go watch it. They'll make the trailer the most important part so that they can sell tickets, but no one actually likes the movie. You can tell that this story, this plot, and the overall feel of the movie had a lot of care put into it, and you could tell this had a team working on it that knew what they were doing, especially in the horror genre. As with the original first movie, it's so easy to just take the concept of a Ouija board and just say someone's friend killed himself, and now we think it's because of the Ouija board, and now it's haunted. We've seen that a million times. Anyone can come up with that kind of storyline, but you need someone that can take it to a different level and have something that's actually deeper than just a shallow cliche like horror plot. So I think the addition of this being a family that is working with the supernatural already, but they're doing it as a scam. It's like I don't know. It's just so unique to me. I really appreciated that aspect of it, just like from the jump. The fact that this film is set in 1967, is back in the 60s, is pretty interesting too. They're not the first to do that. I think The Conjuring, the first Conjuring movie, out of the whole Conjuring series, I think most of the films are set in the 60s because when Ed and Lorraine Warren were like most active, it's just a breath of fresh air. That's a great way to put it. Chris Stuckman did a review for this movie, and that's exactly what he said. Coming out of the theater, he felt like this was a breath of fresh air. I have not seen this movie until today, but I imagine it would be a great experience for the theater too. So let's talk about the child actor in this movie, the youngest daughter, the girl who played Doris Xander in the movie. Her name is Lulu Wilson. She was amazing. One thing that always seems to be effective, well, if it's done right, in this genre is having little kids that are very creepy. It's just a great selling point for horror, to be honest. And it's like, I think the main reason is because, and this is something I think about a lot too, when you can take something that's not supposed to be scary or that no one would think of as being evil and put that level of unsettling nature into your film, it separates it from the basic, bland, monster under the bed kind of thing. It has an element of surprise to it also. She was amazing, and from her alone, honestly can't remember the last time I was genuinely like scared at some points. Like there was a few scenes in this movie that actually scared me, and I was like, wow, because I've watched a lot of horror, and I don't feel like I'm easily scared as it is from movies, at least. And this movie could actually get to you. So the use of CGI was not overdone at all. I think they picked and choose the right time to do it. And I think with Mike Flanagan's style, it worked very well. I think I'm glad that they didn't, because like this is another thing about the Conjuring series is they deal with the supernatural, but they also will. They're not afraid to show the like what these spirits would look like, the monster side, like demon side of things. You have the nun, the crooked man, Annabelle. Obviously, Annabelle's the doll, so she's an actual tangible like thing, but she's possessed. But the girl who died, like they're not afraid to show these things, and I think that's something that this movie did well too. They didn't really show that much, but the demons that they did show were scary, and I think it was a clever idea. Another little thing, it was very small that I think they did well, is they used the actual piece that you put on the Ouija board that has like the clear circle that will like move around that goes to each letter and it goes to yes or no. They use that as like almost a lens into like another dimension to see like these demons and everything, kind of like a lens into like the afterlife. So great film from top to bottom, through and through, and it's also very nice to see, to be interested in a movie and go the whole way and have the ending pay off. Which I'm not going to talk about the ending. I'm not going to spoil it, but the ending was very solid. Also, I was a fan of all of the acting in this. There really wasn't a whole lot in this movie to nitpick, to be honest. There is a running theme, and it seems like it'll forever be the case. Everyone seems to believe that no matter what, a sequel or a third, nothing will ever be as good as an original in a series. Hardly ever. It's kind of like that with songs and music too. The remix will never be as good as the original song. In this case, I can't really say much because I didn't see the first Ouija. I actually didn't even know this was a sequel to it until I did some research earlier. But everyone seems to say that this movie was great and that other movie was real lackluster. So it's like, how often do you see a sequel that is better than the original version? I thought the pacing of this movie was also really good. That's something that some horror movies struggle with. There's some that are slow burns, and it's like it seems like you really don't get a whole lot of action or scares until the very end of the movie. There's some that it's like there's not even any time to develop a story. There's not any time for your characters to develop. There's not time for your audience to get comfortable in the setting that you're trying to portray. They don't even really know what the setting is because all it is action, go, go, go. Like it has to be balanced. You have to be able to give yourself enough time to have rising action and to reach a point when the audience is expecting to see something or is not expecting to see it, but you still gave them enough time. You have to give the story enough build up because when you try to drive home a point, when you try to get a scare across, you need it to have payoff. You don't want to just have a scare and have the audience, okay. It needs to have an impact and it needs to add something. In this film, for example, it's in a scene where she is, after she's just recently been possessed, when a boy who the other sister likes, she invites over. As he's leaving, Doris is right behind him and he turns around quickly. She's very, just standing there with a grand old smile on her face, very creepily. And she ever so calmly asks him, do you know what it feels like to be strangled to death? And then she explains it. And then as he leaves, that is exactly what this movie is so great for, is moments like that. Because whereas other films, these boring movies that's like they could have just had her like jump scare, and they could have put in a loud noise and then have the kid leave. It's like what did that add to the story? Like what was the point of this? And that's like what I was getting at in my video where I talked about jump scares. Like it's very useless to just throw in a loud noise for no reason just to scare the audience. Like I could go on and on about that, but that was showing that she's slowly turning. She is possessed now, and she's also making other people become aware to this, to the fact that she is possessed and that she has something going on with her. So all in all, I would highly recommend this. I really enjoyed watching this, and at some point, I will definitely give it a rewatch. Don't be deceived by the title. It's not a movie about the board game. It's not some cheesy like horror film with a bunch of teenagers that are playing the game and slowly each one of them dies. There's nothing wrong with that, but this film takes the concept of the Ouija board, and I feel like the subtitle is more important and more effective than just Ouija. The Origin of Evil is actually, in my opinion, a better title, and that's something that people should focus on if they're looking into this film, because this really touches on evil, and in classic Mike Flanagan style, it takes a very unique and effective approach. So I'm going to give Ouija Origin of Evil a 4 out of 5, and I highly recommend that you guys go see it. If you have Comcast, Xfinity, and you go on demand, you can just search it. It's free, I believe. I think if you have, I think it's free. I'm not 100% sure, but that's how I watched it. One more thing before I end the video is I am working right now on a drawing of Malachi from The Children of the Corn. So if anyone has seen that movie, you would know how Malachi is kind of like an anti-hero. And he's one of my favorite characters of all time, like of any movie or of anything. So I'm working on a drawing for that right now. I'm not going to show you any progress because it's like there's like no progress yet on it. But that's my next thing. And hope everybody stays safe during all this quarantine. I'll try to put out more videos. But thank you guys for watching and have a good one.